Yo, what's up? Welcome to the part 2 of this video. Yeah, I said part 2 because a few days ago I dropped the first part of this video. So if you've not seen it, it'll be in the first link in the description. That would show you the first part of this whole video. If you've not seen that video, this video will not make any sense at all. So I advise that you go and see that video first. But yeah, for those of you that have been waiting, thank you so much for your patience. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you're having a lovely weekend. So this is the second part of that video. Thank you so much for watching. Please do not forget to like, do not forget to subscribe if you like my channel. If you like the video, do not forget to like. It's just a button for, it's just a click for you, but it's going to help this channel keep growing. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a lovely weekend, like I said before. Bye bye. So with that, I have joined the lining. The next thing is to fix okay, we'll first repeat this step on the other side of the fabric and the lining of the front, and then we'll install the zipper. Alright, so it's time to install our zipper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the bottom of the zipper. So you see where we have that notch, that's where we folded for the hem. I'm going to start from there to fix the zipper. So what you're going to do, you're going to flip the zipper upside down to the wrong side, so that when you are done, it's the right side that will show in front. For me, this side that is ribbed is the back of my zip, it's not the front. So I'm going to place it, then I'm going to stitch from here all the way up to the neckline before we bring the lining into the mix. After that, next thing I'm going to do, or next thing, is to join the fabric to the lining at the bottom. So the same thing, I'm going to start joining them together, but I'm going to stop 3 inches before I get to the end. So let's do that. After we do that, next thing is to sew the fabric and the lining. What we're going to do, you're going to come up to the neckline, and then you're going to try to sew as close to the place where you made the first stitch. So you can see where your first stitch is. You're going to try to stitch as close to it as possible all the way down. By doing that, that will automatically fold the end in, because you know the lining is shorter. All right. Alright, so the next step is to iron. You can see with that we've attached the zip to the front. I'm going to join the other side of the front over here, and then would have completed everything. But make sure to iron this down on your ironing table before you start joining the other side in. But let me bring the other side and join it here, but it's the same thing what I've done here, so I will not film it. Alright, so I've done the same thing to the other side. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to join the shoulder, fabric to fabric and lining to lining at 1/2 inch across. Alright. Alright, so after joining the shoulders, the next thing is we're going to join the body, fabric to fabric first, and then we will join the lining. So whatever allowance you kept, make sure to hold it now. But once I get to where the flay starts from, so I'm going to sew 1.5 from here. Once I hit where the flay starts from, I'll start tapering up to 1/2 inch to maximize the amount of fullness I have down there. Alright, yeah, so I'm going to do the same thing to the lining. But on the lining, you will see me, I will start stitching and after a while I will stop, lock it there, give a space of like at least 6 inches so that my hands can enter later on Alright, and then before I continue, so just watch and see what I'm doing. Alright, so you can see what I was talking about. I've kept the space so that I can access here when I'm done with the sleeve and everything. So this is what's going to come in handy later on. But when I'm stitching the other side of the body, that's the other joining on the side, I'm not going to leave this space in my lining. This space is all we're going to need. The last thing we're going to do here is we're going to need to complete this stitch. You know, when we're joining this down part, we left a space on the side here. So now we'll simply need to continue from here all the way across, and then I will join the other side in a similar way. Alright, with that I have joined one side of the front, I've joined one side, front to back. I'm going to repeat the same thing on this other side, but before I do, I'm going to go back inside and I'm going to spread and iron the joining. So you see this joining I have here, I'm going to spread and iron it flat so that everything is smooth before I proceed. Alright, so if you've been following all the steps, you should have something that looks as delicious as this does. This is the hole that I left for us to be able to access to fix our sleeve later. The next step is going to be the collar, but for that we need to go back to the table, so I'll show you how to cut that so we can attach it. Alright, so now we're back to the table after a brief intermission. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead to start creating the collar first. So what I'm going to do, you can see I've opened up the neckline. I'm going to measure from the fabric from this side here across to the other side of the neckline and get a number that we'll use for cutting the collar. So after measuring across the neck, I have 15. Make sure to keep that. That's the number we'll use for cutting the collar. Alright, so now it's time to start cutting the collar. This is going to be easy. We're going to take that 15. We're going to divide it in half. 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. You're going to come here and you're going to make a mark at 7.5. Then you're going to mark the middle of 7.5. The middle of 7.5 is 3.75. So you're going to make a mark at that point. Next thing you're going to do, you're going to come up by 1.5 inches and make a mark there. And then you're going to connect this middle to this point. And then next thing we're going to do, you're going to measure it again up to where you have the 7.5. That's half of 15. When you get 7.5, you make a mark. So after you've made this mark here, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to mark the height of the collar, which is 1.5 inches everywhere. Alright, so after we've done all of this, the next thing is I'm going to make a curve at the front of the collar, and that's all. Alright, so after I've cut out my pattern, I'm going to pick up one of the many pieces of that, that fell when I was cutting out my initial pattern, because it's just a small collar we are cutting. When you're cutting this collar, you want to place the flat edge, okay, the flat edge close to a folded edge, and then you're going to simply cut. When you're cutting, make sure to keep ½ inch at every point around here. Alright, so you're basically just cutting around ½ an inch. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to my sewing machine and I'm going to just simply sew them together. Just start from here, ½ an inch everywhere, but don't sew ½ an inch at the bottom of the curve, alright? Just only here, all the way around down here. Alright, so now I'm going to simply make notches around the collar that I just finished stitching, around the curved edges. Alright, I'm now going to head back to my sewing machine and I'm going to stitch close to the edge around here, all the way around, just to hold it. Just a nice decorative stitch all the way around the collar. Alright, so now the next thing I'm going to do, well, I'll do that off camera. So I'm going to go ahead to cut the sleeve. The sleeve is just as the first part of the sleeve. Like I said, the sleeve is 10 by 18. So the first part of the sleeve from the shoulder to where the cut is, that's just a regular sleeve. I'm going to drop a link in the description for how to cut a sleeve. That's going to show you how to cut that part. When I'm done cutting that, I'm going to come back to show you how we are going to cut the flay parts. Then we'll move over to the sewing machine. Alright, so I've cut my sleeve here. My sleeve is going to be made of a white fabric. Onto the main fabric, I have ironed stay. Alright, I know that you really can't tell because everything is white. And onto the lining, I've ironed gum stay. Alright, on the inside. So this is it for the sleeve. Now let's move on to cutting the flay, most importantly. Alright, so now it's time for us to cut the flay. The first measurement we will need is the bicep measurement. So the bicep measurement we're dealing with is 12 divided by 4 is going to give us 3. So you want to use 3 to make this curve. Please make sure that you are very careful and make sure that it's 3 exactly. Alright, so you take your bicep measurement, divide it by 4 and use that number to make your curve. Alright, just a small curve. So the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to place the remaining part of the sleeve length. So remember the sleeve length was 10 by 18, so we're going to place that 18 here. You're going to come here and you're going to make a mark around 9 inches. This we're marking 9 instead of 8 because we're adding 1 inch for the sewing allowance. Half inch up here, half inch at the bottom. You're going to come from here and you're going to mark 9 inch. Alright, and then going to roll a line across these points. Alright, so I'm going to cut one side of the fabric on camera with you, but for the rest of the other sides I'm going to cut it off camera. I'm cutting two parts of the sleeve from the fabric, and I'm cutting 2 from the white. So I want to combine it. The white is going to be under, the fabric is going to be on top of it to give the sleeve that design that you've seen. Alright, so I'm going to use my pattern to arrange the amount of fabric I'm using. So after you made the first fold, we are going to fold again. So I know that everything is all white, but this is just to give you a clear picture of what's going on. So I don't know if the white and white is showing, but this is the first square we have under there. We're going to take the second one. This is how it's going to be on the sewing machine. So you see this is how the flare got those sharp angles on the sleeve. So you see some parts are going to have like a V. I don't know if it's coming through, but yeah, make sure you cut this 4 times, 2 on the fabric, 2 on the lining, and then I'm going to be back. 2 for the fabric and 2 for the white. Alright, so this is what we are trying to do. I cut and made this one first. I built this one up completely first so that to give you an image of what we are trying to do. You can see this is a square sitting on the square underneath. So by the time you pick it up, you have a flay where some points are pointy. You know, that's how to achieve that. So this is what we're trying to do. Alright, so on this part here, that's on the fabric, I'm going to iron gum stay onto the fabric. So the hard gum stay, the medium weight gum stay we used to pad the flay part of the top. That's what we're going to use to harden up this flay over here. Alright, so I'm ironing this onto the wrong side. I'm also going to iron it onto one side of the white part as well. So I'm going to iron this on. When I'm done, I'm going to cut it out and then iron the other side. Alright, so now I've ironed my gum stay onto the fabric and onto the white fabric. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my lining, that's the fabric I want to use to line this. I'm going to cut it with this measurements. I'm going to make them identical, and on the wrong side of the lining I'll iron soft gum stay onto them. So the soft one we used for the lining of the top parts, I'm going to use this on the lining that's going to cover the rough edge of the sleeve. But the lining is going to be the same pattern with what we have cut here already. Alright, so let me cut that, iron the gum stay, and I'll be back with further instruction. Alright, so I've ironed the hair stay onto my lining. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to simply place the lining on top of the fabric, or you can place the fabric on top of the lining. You can see on the wrong side of the lining, I've ironed, I don't know if you can see it because it's white, But yeah, ironed Estee onto the back of the lining. Gum stay, sorry. So I'm now going to stitch around the square. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing on the whites as well. Alright, so now I'm going to notch all the angles. Alright, so I'm going to repeat this. I'm going to iron this, alright, then I'm going to repeat this on the white fabric. Next thing we'll go to the sewing machine and start joining all these things to the body. Alright, the first step on the sewing machine would be for us to attach our collar that we made a while ago. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch the collar on the fabric. So you see this, pick what side of the side of the collar that you want to show outside. So wherever you made the stitch, the front of your collar, whatever part you picked to be the front, you place it right at the edge, and now I'm going to stitch across the collar from here all the way around the neckline. Sorry. Alright, 1/2 inch is what I'm using for this joining. Alright, so now I've fixed the collar. Next thing we're going to do, you can pass through the armhole, alright, or you would have to pass through the armhole. Alright, so after you've done everything in through one of your necklines, you're going to stitch on the blue stitch that you just made. But as you're doing that, you would put your lining around, that's the neckline part of your lining, in the way, so that you can lock the collar in between your fabric and your lining. Alright, with that, if I turn everything inside out, you'll see that we have installed our collar. Alright, so with that we've installed our collar. The next step is to install our sleeve. We're coming to the end. Well, yeah, so let's move on to the sleeve. Alright, so the next thing, this here is the fabric, and this part here is the lining. The next thing you are going to do is to sew whatever allowance you kept on your sleeves. Alright, so for me, that allowance was 1/2 inch. I'm going to run 1/2 inch from here all the way down on the fabric and on the lining. Alright, so now after you've stitched your sleeve, next thing you're going to do, head back to your ironing table, and then I'm going to iron the joining I just made, the seam I just made flat on both the fabric and the lining. Alright, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place the fabric and the lining together like so, and then I'm going to pull the fabric over the lining, and then I'm going to come over to the bottom here, and then I'm going to join them together, consuming 1/2 inch. Alright, this is just to hold them, so you can stitch as close to the edge as possible, just to hold the fabric and the lining together. The whole jacket is going to be neat, except at the joining where you would attach the flare. Alright, so that's the only place that you need to use a weaving machine to finish the edge nicely, but the entire inside would be neatly finished. But let me go ahead and join these ones together. Alright, so here we have the pattern fabric on the plane. I'm going to go ahead to stitch them together. You see the way I've placed it to look like the Star of David. Alright, the next step is make sure that your fabric is the one that's facing you, like the one that's facing outside now. You're going to take it and place the front of your fabric facing the pattern part of the flare here. I'm going to stitch from here all the way around. Just saw the way I just turned the flare over the sleeve. I'm going to simply bind them together now, consuming 1/2 inch. So as I was saying, this is the only place where you would have your like two rough edges showing like so. So simply use your overlocker, your weaving machine to finish here neatly. But yeah, let's attach the sleeve to the body. So to do this, we're going to get the body, alright, and you're going to take the front, not the lining, the main fabric of your sleeve. Align it with the armhole. You see this is the armhole, this is the bottom joining of the sleeve. Align it with the armhole on the body, and I'm going to stitch around. Now the lining is not coming in at this point, it's just only fabric and fabric together. Start from the armhole, stitch around, it should bring you back here. Alright, so now after you're done with that, what you're going to do is you're going to now join the armhole together of the lining. So you see this, you're going to twist your lining. Now I've already fixed the other sleeve, so if you are fixing the first sleeve, you can easily pass through this armhole here and hold whatever you want to sew here and sew it. But I'm showing you how to fix the last sleeve because this is going to be the one that will need you to work a bit. So if you are fixing the first one, you simply turn the lining like so, and then it will be very easy because you would have a big hole in this armhole. Alright, but because we don't have that, you need to access this point here through the hole that we kept in the body. Alright, so bring out your lining, make sure everything inside is not there is no twist or tangle. What you're going to do, you see this, basically placing front facing front, twist it like that, catch it with your hand, pass through this hole and force everything out through this hole. Oops. Alright, so now that we're out here, we're going to now stitch all the way around. This hole will allow us to make this stitch clean. You will see this is the armhole. This is the armhole we just stitched. You can see everything is clean and neat. Alright, the last step is to seal off this hole that we have left here. So if you're actually making this for a customer, not like me, that my wife is basically using me, basically just milking me like a donkey, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure you use the same color of thread and stitch from here all the way down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use whatever color that I'm currently using. But if you're making this for a client, make sure you use white on white and seal this hole here. And once you make that stitch, you are pretty much done with the whole thing. Just go ahead, give it a good pressing. This was a very difficult video to make. I hope that you guys would watch it. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you've watched this far, I'll see you in the next video. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.